You boys be quiet down there!
I thought it was about time I covered a game for PC-88 that wasn't made by Falcom. So today we're talking about Wibarm, 1986, by Arsys Software. This was an addictive and extremely impressive game for its time. It utilized 3D graphics in order to have first-person sections which are actually smooth and navigable, something which was hard to come by in 8-bit games. MS-DOS gamers watching might be familiar with this title, since it was ported to that platform 3 years later by Broderbund in English. According to Wikipedia, Wibarm was the first action role-playing game to feature 3D polygonal graphics, so this should be interesting. Let's take a look quickly at the packaging. This is the cover. And here's the back. On the inside, you can see that the packaging is pretty minimal compared to the Falcom games I've reviewed previously. I have this warranty card and survey, but my copy of the game is unfortunately missing the manual, so here's a photo of someone else's, just to prove that it originally had one. The game comes on only one bright blue floppy disk. So let's insert this blue beast in drive 1, press power, and see what happens. The story of Wibarm. This is the story of the distant future. It is already more than 20 years since the terrible nuclear war was over. However, in spite of the bitter experience, the big countries still go on increasing in war potential as usual, with a tense relationship. Such a time. The rebellion breaks out in the government city, and rebel forces occupied almost all the city. Now the possible investigation was made, but nobody knows the fact of it yet. 1986 Arsys Software. If you hit the spacebar and simply try to start the game from here, it will ask you to insert a user disk and won't let you advance. So without a manual, I had to do some experimenting. Typically, to create a user disk, you will need to either press a certain key on the title screen or hold down a key while booting the game. So I tried all the keys on the title screen, and what do you know? Pressing escape will bring you to a user disk creation mode. So now we can insert a blank disk, create the user disk, and once we get back to the title screen, we'll be able to start the game from the beginning. We start out at the base ship, where we can select 3 extra weapons. We'll be able to change these later, so no need to worry too much about which ones we choose now. We can try them all. So we press space key to take off, and immediately we are thrown into the first overworld stage of the game. As you can see, you can fly all over the screen really quickly and transform into 3 different forms. The Mobile Rider, which is an airplane that lets you fly quickly around the screen. The Armonoid Wibarm, which is your humanoid form suited for combat. And the Land Cruiser, which can only move along the ground. I'll show you what this is for later. The humanoid form can move up and down when at the ground level. Dorky robot, big stupid dorky robot. And holding down on the D-pad while on any solid platform will cause him to uselessly walk in place. When you hit an enemy on the playfield, you will be taken to a separate battle screen where you can either clear all the enemies or retreat by walking off the edge of the screen. This battle encounter system is identical to Falcom's classic PC game Xanadu. Xanadu was a hugely popular PC game in Japan released a year earlier for PC-88 and other platforms, so it's no wonder they chose to borrow elements from that title. The transforming robot with its main laser weapon is also obviously borrowed from Thexter, which was another hugely popular PC-88 game released by Game Arts in the same year. So you could say that Wibarm is kind of a combination of Xanadu and Thexter, but Wibarm has one new trick up its sleeve. Enter one of several doors on the map by pressing the B button, and the really interesting part of the game will begin. The indoor parts of the game take place in 3D third-person mazes. This is really an impressive graphical feat for 1986. According to all sources I've read on the topic, these 3D graphics are done with actual polygons. Look how smoothly you were able to rotate around and move in multiple directions. You can still transform into all three forms of your robot. Enemies show up as stationary blobs on the field, and when you run into them, you get the same side view battle screen as before. A really nice feature is the map recorder. The map gets created automatically as you explore, and is super easy to read. Enemies, locked doors, items, different sorts of walls, etc. are all marked by different icons, so you won't get lost easily. So, as I first started exploring this game, I wasted a lot of time. I had one very important question. How do you progress the game, and what's the goal? I don't even have a manual for this game, and despite being released in English, there aren't any walkthroughs available. The best help I could find were some Let's Plays on YouTube in both English and Japanese. I wish I had watched them earlier because they taught me a lot about how to play the game. As in many older RPGs, the first thing you need to do is become stronger. You'll want to start off attacking whichever enemies you are able to kill, and retreating from those which you can't. As you defeat enemies, your robot will gradually become stronger. But how do I know I'm getting stronger? You'll notice a lot of different numbers and indicators on the screen. In the lower left corner, your energy is your weapon power. This gradually gets depleted as you use your main beam weapon or any of the extra weapons. When this runs out, you're pretty much finished because you can't use your weapons anymore. You'll need to recharge your weapon power before you can continue playing. Skipping down to ability, this number is basically your experience. The higher this number goes, the stronger your main weapons are. Mental is a little harder to explain, but my best understanding is that this number determines how many ability points you will receive at the end of each battle. This number recharges automatically whenever you're not in battle. On the right hand side, let's look at damage first. This is simple enough. The meter goes up as your robot gets hit, and if it fills all the way up, you die and have to go back to where you last saved your game. Lastly, above that, your machine abilities are more firm numbers which affect your overall main weapon strength, speed, and defense. These only go up at certain points in the game when you return to the base ship and level up. By the way, it took me a while to figure out that you can fly back to your base ship at any time, which will refill all your meters and repair your ship. You can also change your 3 extra weapons here. You'll spend a lot of time early in the game fighting enemies and constantly returning to the base ship. It can be a slow grind, and you'll find a lot of enemies you can't even hurt yet. But with each ability point you gain, you'll know you're getting stronger. Some of the enemies on the overworld endlessly respawn, so there's no worry that you'll ever run out of enemies completely. Once you can't find any more enemies in the overworld which you are able to kill, it's time to start exploring the indoor mazes. You're still going to find a lot of enemies you can't kill and will kick your ass, so it's a good idea to save your game before any battle you're not sure about. Luckily, you can save anywhere, but again, like many games of this era, you can only save one game file per save disk. You can press escape anytime to bring up the command menu. Let's go over some of these options. By hitting F2, you can select between your 3 extra weapons you chose earlier, as you can only have one actually equipped at a time. Pressing the B button during battle will allow you to use this weapon. This is more powerful than your main weapon and will help you to take down some enemies which you otherwise wouldn't be able to even damage yet. I'm personally a fan of the Vaster rifle and the Sonic rifle because they're the most powerful. There really isn't much point to using anything else in my opinion. Some of the other weapons actually suck a lot, to be honest. Next on the command menu, you can press F3 to use optional parts. The key units are keys that you pick up in the mazes and can use to open locked doors which appear as these large cylindrical objects. Hey, it looks like maybe I could just walk past them. Nah, it doesn't work. The energy charger recharges your energy so you can keep attacking without returning to the base ship. The repair system resets your damage meter, and the camphor kit replenishes your mental meter. The field controller lets you erase one of these warp devices so that you don't get warped around the map. Besides a lot of the enemies being tough as hell, you're also going to have to deal with other bullshit in the mazes like false walls which you can pass through, which luckily are pretty easy to find by looking at the map. There are also these low openings in some of the walls which you can only pass through by transforming into the land cruiser. And yes, this is basically the only use for the Land Cruiser. The game would probably be just fine without it, but I guess they wanted to be able to brag that the robot has 3 forms. The mazes have a finite number of enemies in them, and eventually once you've killed most of the enemies in all the first level mazes, you'll be strong enough to kill the ones guarding the key to the next level. Hey, the key looks like a giant raised middle finger. I put in all this work to complete the first stage and now the game is flipping me the bird. Once you've collected it, a new opening in the sky appears that will take you to the next level. Wibarm is divided into a few of these large levels, and each of them looks a little different from the last. The mazes also become dramatically more complex from the second level on. Overall, Wibarm is not only a really innovative game for its time, but it's also a very fun one once you learn to play it. It will seem more than a bit grindy and time-consuming to most players attempting to play it today, but once you've gotten near the end of a level and can kill most of the enemies, you'll feel at the top of the world. It's really a game for people who are able to enjoy slowly raising their stats and feel accomplishment at gradually becoming able to kill enemies they couldn't before. I have just a few nitpicks about the game. A couple of them are related to the transforming ability. If you get into an enemy encounter while not transformed into your humanoid form, you're probably going to want to change as soon as possible. This can be a little clumsy and annoying. Also, exploring the mazes in the airplane form is nice and fast, but is very easy to hit a wall, which will automatically transform you into the Land Rover form. Transforming might not be so annoying if the gamepad had a third button. As it is, you have to press X on the keyboard whenever you want to transform. Another feature that would have been nice would be the ability to look freely around the map. You can only see the immediate area within a certain distance from the player character. The only way to see the rest of the map is to move around. Also, a load feature would have been convenient. The only way to load a saved game is by intentionally getting killed or by rebooting the game, which takes a surprisingly long time. It would be nice to be able to load when you accidentally enter a building you didn't want to. You can't just go back out the way you came in. The exit is elsewhere, and you'll probably spend a long time searching for it. You'd think there would be a door right where you start on the map, but you'd be wrong. The music in the game is pretty average for PC-88. I spoil myself by playing too many games by Falcom on this system, but if I'm being honest, this is pretty much what the majority of PC-88 games sound like. The game was ported in the same year it was originally released to the NEC PC-98, the Sharp X1, the Sharp MZ, and the Fujitsu FM7. Of course, there was also the MS-DOS version released in 1989. Here's me playing it in DOSBox. The MS-DOS game is improved by getting rid of the mental meter and changing it so that when you get into a battle, you can only use your humanoid form, which is usually for the best. Pretty much all of the music seems to be different too, other than the base ship music. There are a lot of other little differences to the game which you'll find if you play it for yourself. Overall, I still prefer the speed of the game and the way the graphics look on the PC-88. Well, now since you know how to play the game, you don't really need to read any of these information units scattered throughout the mazes. Why not give the PC-88 version a spin even if you can't read Japanese? Thanks for watching. I have something a little bit different planned for next time, so stay tuned and look forward to it. In the meantime, make sure you help us out by liking and commenting on this video, and by subscribing to Basement Brothers. See you soon!